Hello, everyone.
Hi again. We're in Genesis 40 now.
Mm-hmm.
Joseph in Egypt. We're reading from we're reading the whole chapter.
Yes.
1 to 23.
Mm-hmm.
Sometime after this, the cupbearer of the king of Egypt and his baker committed an offense against their lord, the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was angry with the two officers, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and he put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guard in the prison where Joseph was confined. The captain of the guard appointed Joseph to be with them, and he attended them. They continued for some time in custody. And one night they both dreamed, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were confined in the prison, each his own dream, and each dream with its own interpretation. When Joseph came to them in the morning, he saw that they were troubled. So he asked Pharaoh's officers who were with him in custody in his master's house, "Why are your faces downcast today?" They said to him, "We have had dreams, and there is no one to interpret them." And Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Please tell them to me."
Then the chief butler told his dream to Joseph, and said to him, "Behold, in my dream a vine was before me, and in the vine were 3 branches. It was as though it budded, its blossoms shot forth, and its clusters brought forth ripe grapes. Then Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand." And Joseph said to him, "This is the interpretation of it. The 3 branches are 3 days. Now within 3 days Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your place, and you will put Pharaoh's cup in his hand, according to the former manner, when you were his butler. But remember me when it is well with you, and please show kindness to me. Make mention of me to Pharaoh, and get me out of this house. For indeed I was stolen away from the land of the Hebrews, and also I have done nothing here, that they should put me into the dungeon."
When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was favorable, he said to Joseph, "I also had a dream. There were 3 cake baskets on my head, and in the uppermost basket there were all sorts of baked food for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating it out of the basket on my head." And Joseph answered and said, "This is its interpretation. The 3 baskets are 3 days. In 3 days Pharaoh will lift up your head from you and hang you on a tree, and the birds will eat the flesh from you." On the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, he made a feast for all his servants and lifted up the head of the chief cupbearer and the head of the chief baker among his servants. He restored the chief cupbearer to his position, and he placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker, as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet the chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph, but forgot him. Fascinating that the Watchtower finds a precious truth for themselves in this chapter.
Yeah.
But misses the real force of the chapter.
Yeah. They turn to the birthday. Bad things happen at birthday parties.
So, of course, that's an invention of Rutherford. It was not believed in the days of Russell. Mm-hmm. And no one out there in Christendom, to my knowledge, believes this. This is the point of this chapter. So what is the point of this chapter?
Well, I think, you should focus on the capabilities of Joseph here, the uniqueness of his capabilities. Here he's able to interpret dreams, not his own dreams, but somebody else has had a dream. And it's not that he can do it, it's a gifting to him from God.
Yeah, as he
God
says
can do it.
in verse 8, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Please tell them to me."
Mm-hmm.
So fascinating that it's the pagans that get the revelation, which we would tend to equate with inspiration. They've got the message, but they don't know how to interpret the message.
Yeah.
And this is parallel, of course, with Nebuchadnezzar later. In his court, Daniel rises to prominence, even though he's in the court already. He rises to be the 3rd in the kingdom, as Joseph rises to be the 2nd in the kingdom, because of a unique gift. It's only twice in the Bible that these 2 individuals, Joseph and Daniel,
have that specific gift.
But why is that important if you're a Jehovah's Witness? Because isn't that the only gift that your organization is claiming? The gift, they say we're not inspired or infallible. If you ask them, well, why should I trust you? It's because we are the only people on earth who have the right interpretations
but
of
then
Revelation.
what do is they interpret something and then they get it wrong, and then they say, well, I got new light, so still listen to me. Well, Joseph, he gets it right first try. There's no second chances here. He tells you what the dream means. He doesn't have to backtrack.
That's right. So you could say tracking his rise to prominence, which by the way takes 13 years. Why does he rise to prominence? For one reason, he's got that patience.
Yeah.
He doesn't get what he wants, which is to be remembered by the cupbearer. When Pharaoh blesses him, he wants to get some residual blessing too. So he has the patience. He has truth and courage. Even in saying what he says to the baker, he feels compelled by the truth of the interpretation to give it, despite the discomfort that I would feel anyway if I had to tell someone you're going to die soon.
Yeah.
He has the character to rise to prominence, and Potiphar has already seen it, and now the man in charge of the prisons has obviously seen it and given him a responsibility. Yeah. But this gift, this unique gift of being able to interpret divine revelation.
I really think it's important too that we notice the fact that the revelation is given to the pagans. In Nebuchadnezzar's case as well. He's the one that has a revelation from God. At least that's what Daniel says. God has given you this dream to tell you what's going to happen in the future. So I think sometimes we really have the tendency to think God is dependent on us to reveal things to people, to explain things to people.
Yeah.
But this shows you that he's not bound by whether or not you're one of God's people, in one of his saints, one of his believers. He can talk to whoever he wants to. There's a passage in the New Testament where it says Christ's light shines on every man.
Yeah.
I think that's either in John 1 or...
John 1, the Logos light, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's, he's not bound by what we think he's bound by, because we're bound by it.
Yeah, we are the people.
Yeah.
and wisdom will die with you. I remember Job jabbed his friends with that one, right?
Yeah.
I do see for me, this is a central chapter in our rethinking our position as witnesses. When I was thinking about Genesis, as I did in the last few years of our engagement with the Watchtower, this chapter came to mind frequently because I thought, how do we measure up here? We're saying we are qualified, uniquely qualified, to be the witnesses of God to the entire world in the last days. And yet when God wanted to speak to the Gentile world then, what did he do? And how did he qualify his witness? Joseph had a godly character, and they've kind of seen that already. That's why he's risen to these privileged positions. But this ability to interpret revelation without an error.
Gifted by God.
How does the Watchtower measure up over 5 generations?
Yeah.
We've got a quote from Nahum Sarna again, right? The Jewish rabbi who wrote a commentary called, well, he wrote a full commentary, but this is the book he wrote before that.
Understanding Genesis, it's called.
Nahum Sarna on this unique ability that Joseph displays here.
He says, you might need to help me with the word, I think. Okay, I don't even know where I'm starting.
2:18?
Yeah. Is Israel, I'm just wondering where, there it is. Sorry. Despite the fact that Israel shared with its pagan neighbors a belief in the reality of dreams as a medium of divine communication, it never developed, as in Egypt and Mesopotamia, a class of professional interpreters or a dream literature. In the entire Bible, only 2 Israelites engaged in the interpretation of dreams, Joseph and Daniel, and significantly enough, each serves a pagan monarch, the one in Egypt and the other in Mesopotamia. Precisely the lands in which, that's the word I don't know.
Oneiromancy?
Right.
Meaning interpretation of dreams.
Okay. Flourished. Moreover, in each case, the Israelite is careful to disclaim any innate ability, attributing all to God. Nor does skill at dream interpretation play any part in the definition of biblical wisdom or the equipment of prophet and sage.
That's a great point, that you have a professional class set apart to do this very kind of stuff. And yet, in the case of Pharaoh and in the case of Nebuchadnezzar, they can't do it. So much so that Nebuchadnezzar gets really angry and says, you're going to die.
But it's what brings them to his attention.
That's right.
So that God's will gets done.
So how's the true God going to display himself and vindicate himself before the pagan polytheists? By this very kind of unique gift that he has, he only can give.
Yeah.
What's the link?
The link is Daniel hits a home run, and J.W. Org strikes out on Neb's tests. That's Nebuchadnezzar.
Who's Nebs? Nebuchadnezzar.
Yeah.
Spelled with a Z, right? Nebs?
Yeah.
So this is about Daniel chapter 2, the
Right.
dream image, and Nebuchadnezzar's frustration because he can't get anyone to interpret it properly for him.
Right. And we'll put the Daniel playlist on as well.
And why is that important? Well,
Oh, there's lots of good stuff in the Daniel playlist.
Oh,
good
yeah.
talking points and good rethinking of the problems that the Watchtower has, really.
yeah, if I were to recommend one of our playlists to cover virtually all of the talking points that are important, the badge issues with the
Yeah.
Watchtower,
That's right.
Daniel playlist would be the one.
Yeah.
See you soon.